All right, we're rolling. All right, Mike.
I'm good.
Thanks for meeting me early this morning.
No problem.
It's what day is it?
Tuesday the 26th?
Yeah.
27th?
Yeah.
One of those.
And it's bike season.
It is. It's it started off a little wet, but it's good now.
Totally. Yeah. Thanks for taking me for a loop up Katy Hill yesterday. It was pretty good up there.
Yeah.
Only a couple little puddles.
Yeah, it's surprising how fast things have drained, now that the amount of work that goes into maintaining the trails has really made it so that the trails are rideable way more often, way earlier in the season, and just, they ride great.
Totally. Yeah. Just based off what we were talking about yesterday, I think a lot of people don't quite know what goes into building the trails. Especially folks traveling up here.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know that it's a very small cohort of trail builders.
Yep.
That put in hours and hours and weeks of time over many, many years to have created networks like Katy Hill or the North Branch of Montpelier or Saxon Hill.
Adams Camp. There's a lot of labor that goes into being able to ride mountain bikes in the woods. The sport's evolved so much over the past 30 years, from literally just riding on walking paths, hiking trails, to like full-on professional trail builders who are, they're incredibly knowledgeable about hydraulics, where water comes from and goes, and where to best places to build trails, like how to avoid having wet zones that never dry out, which is something that used to plague us here. Sometimes there's trails that just go in places that maybe they shouldn't be. And instead of doing more labor, more maintenance, build a smarter trail. And that's where, we've gotten to the point where there's a lot of professional builders that know what they're doing and know, where to put a trail to make it ride better.
So when did you start riding mountain bikes here in Vermont? Or what's your background? Like, what's your story, and when did you start riding here?
Yeah, I like to think I never stopped riding bikes since I was a kid. Like I kept riding bikes. I didn't stop in high school or anything. I rode road bikes a lot, and then when mountain biking became a thing, I grew up in southern New Hampshire, so there was a lot of trail, there was a lot of places, a lot of woods, a lot of places to ride bikes. So kind of got into it pretty much as soon as I knew about it. So I was coming from New Hampshire to the Kingdom Trails to ride Kingdom Trails in the early days of the Kingdom Trails Association.
And when was that? When did that start?
I probably started riding Kingdom Trails in the late 90s.
Cool.
And then moved to Stowe in 2003. I like to say I moved here to ski, but I stayed to ride bikes. Cool. Summers here are pretty special. I enjoy the winters, but summers are epic. It's
Totally.
And the riding in this state has exploded. In the last 10 years, we've gone from, a place like Kingdom Trails being like this benchmark trail network that everyone aspired to unfortunately, it's still as great a trail network as it ever was. It's better. They keep building, but I feel like there's so many other good trail networks that Kingdom Trails aren't really getting ridden the way they used to. It's no longer like this, oh man, I'm going to Kingdom Trails, it's going to be awesome. Now there's, Rochester, Randolph, there's riding in, there's riding, almost every town has a trail network at this point. And some of them are, really putting a lot of resources into building great trails. And then eventually it'll be the Vermont Trail that will link basically along, essentially paralleling the Long Trail, and be able to ride north-south or south-north on mountain bike trail pretty much the length of the state of Vermont.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
What's the timeline for that? I don't have a lot of info on that.
I don't know that. But they're built a lot. They kind of started at Killington and they're moving north. They're
Cool.
through Rochester, Randolph at this point. And the idea is basically to have a network of like bike packable trail with some smoother, you know, cyclic gravel bike worthy trail, and but also linking up a bunch of mountain bike trail networks. So you can basically ride, drop your gear for if you're bike packing, drop your stuff, ride for half a day or a day, and then camp out, and then move on.
That's epic.
Yeah, and
Like that'll be kind of have that notoriety that like the VTXL or the Vermont Gravel Growler has, but with a whole new dimension, I feel like.
yeah, it's going to be. I think it's going to be something really special, like really special. And if that gets developed, then you've got the rail trail that goes from St. Albans to St. Johnsbury across the state. Like it will be kind of basically a super highway for bikes. Like people can move around the state on two wheels super easy.
Totally.
That's super fun, but it's also like it's good for people to be able to not drive.
Yeah, yeah. So when you talk about, you were mentioning how Canyon Trails used to be kind of the mecca, still is, but there's a lot more accessibility. There's a lot more trail networks that are starting to kind of rival Kingdom Trails. Would you say that's kind of increased accessibility for folks? Would you say it's decreased traffic at some of the main hubs and spread out riders across more trails?
I would say both of those things. First of all, it's great for all of us to be able to like hop on your bike after work and go for a ride on local trails and like have a great time because it's a really good trail. It's good for communities, Stowe being one, where it drives tourism. People are coming to town. They're eating in the restaurants. They're staying in hotels. They're getting bike service if they break something, or they're renting demo bikes. They're spending some money in the community, and that helps all of us. So it has really smoothed out kind of the tourism curve. There was always like a really big dead time in the spring and in the fall, and being able to ride mountain bikes in mid-April, it has really knocked down some of the total dead zone of nothing going on in town.
Yeah.
So it helps all of us.
I can see Randolph as kind of being the next big case study in the bike tourism, outdoor recreation economy here in Vermont. It's located much closer to some of the southern bordering states, New Hampshire and Massachusetts. And, I went to middle school with a guy that owns one of the bike shops down there, the Gear House. And I also know that the Vermont Outdoor Business Alliance has been putting a lot of resources and focus and energy into trying to prop up the bike tourism in particular. And with, they've been doing trainings for bike techs that I was able to hop onto, and then they did trail building classes, and they're just putting a lot into that. And I think it's gonna really be a boon for a lot of the smaller towns around here that have close access to some really cool areas.
Yeah, for sure. In that area, along with the summer bike side of things, there as ski touring becomes more of a thing. There's also, you get there's a bunch of backcountry skiing in the area too. There's it's definitely it can be a massive boon for them. There can be a slight, there's with everything. There's usually a positive and negative.
Totally. It changes things. It changes the dynamics of a town. More folks might be buying vacation properties and things like that, so that can kind of throw off housing prices and availability and supply and things like that. So that definitely happens. But if folks are coming and, rather than just stopping at a gas station on their way up to Stowe, they're actually driving down into Randolph, stopping there, maybe spending a night, buying a few meals there.
Yeah, and it helps all of us because they might you know, maybe they'll look at places to stay and decide to stay at Sugarbush or Waitsfield or Warren and have a short commute to the trails there, or coming to town for 4 or 5 days and spending, you know, a day at multiple different riding zones, and we all benefit from that. You know,
Totally.
so it's really neat what the sport has done, and it took a while. It was kind of a slow burn at first, like where as trails got built, people came and rode them, but then there wasn't really much behind that.
Mm-hmm.
And I know for years the Kingdom Trails was kind of like, there was there's one bike shop. There was like one place there was a little spot with a deli, and there was a gas station, and but there wasn't much other businesses. There was no real like commerce happening.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden it hit.
Totally.
And there's, you know, half a dozen coffee shops. There's suddenly a bunch of bed and breakfasts. There's, you know, multiple restaurants.
Mm-hmm.
It really, the multiple bike shops.
Yep.
It really changed things. And I think also, like, people go and they ride their bike there and they're like, wow, this is beautiful.
Totally.
Maybe I'll schedule my wedding here, and that there's all kinds of things like that spring out of it too. I think that you know, it's not all just people riding bikes. It's people seeing the community and liking it and wanting to be here.
It's super cool. Yeah, so Sunday we had a few bike packers come in. They were doing the Vermont Gravel Growler. Mm-hmm. You ended up helping them out with their brakes. Guy had some bike issues going on. Did you get a chance to talk to them much?
A little bit. I was, you know, kind of busy with fixing his brakes. But yeah, great guys. You know, and I feel like every time I feel like I've interacted with a number of groups of people doing the Vermont Gravel Growler. Always seem really, really cool. Like they are having a great time, even though sometimes it's terrible weather.
Yeah. So and those are always the best folks that come into the shop. You know, those adventure folks that are in the middle of a journey. And, you know, I love it when people come in and we can fix a problem for them and they leave with a smile on their face. And,
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know, when I was interviewing them, they said, oh, everybody in there is super nice. Mike was extremely helpful with the bike. Like, he was super quick. So I just wanted to throw those kudos over to you. You probably hear it all the time. But,
well, the other thing they said to me was that it wasn't their first mechanical on their ride. And they were like, everywhere we've been has been so helpful and friendly, and like really like everybody they were interacting with on their trip like had been great to them. So like that's cool to hear, you know, for the whole state.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. Vermont has this Vermont has this air of like hospitality and friendliness, and you know, it's a small state and we have some pretty gnarly weather up here sometimes, and I feel like that kind of lends itself to us having that warm, inviting, helpful mentality towards folks.
Yeah.
Beyond just being, you know, a tourism-driven economy, you know, I think it's genuinely ingrained in our culture up here, and I think that speaks a lot.
Yeah, I personally, I think the reasoning behind it, a lot of it is like so many people that have relocated here, like myself, move here for quality of life.
Yep.
It's not the easiest place to make a living.
Totally.
You know,
it's expensive.
It's expensive to live here, and like jobs are, there aren't a lot of super high paying jobs. So.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's not like it's a finance center or
right
or whatnot. You know, there's a lot of, you know, majority service based.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Businesses.
But the way I look at it is like we moved here for quality of life, and I think that stands true for a lot of Vermonters. We're here because we want the quality of life that Vermont offers. So why would you make that harder? You know, it's just easier to be nice to people than it is to be, you know, not. And
Totally.
And I think inherently a lot of people here they enjoy their day-to-day life because this is a great place to be. And they're not necessarily grinding out 70-hour work weeks to make as much money as possible. They're living a life that they want, a lifestyle that they want, and that's I think that changes your attitude.
Totally, absolutely. So you spend a lot of time in the shop.
I do.
What do you spend most of your time doing down there?
I mean, there's always broken things to fix.
Yeah.
Whether it's, we're still tuning skis at this point of the year. People are finishing up their seasons and getting stuff dialed in for summer storage. So still tuning. And then bikes, there was always broken parts on bikes.
Totally.
And then we've got a pretty big rental fleet, so keeping that running smoothly keeps it pretty busy.
Totally. Yeah. I remember when I first started shopping here, I bought a pair of Dynafit Radical Pros, and you were the guy that fit me with those boots, and I was like, that guy knows so much about boots. And that kind of just tipped me off, and I had an opportunity, and I left another shop here in Vermont, and just kind of popped in here and really wanted to work here, and just got lucky. So it's been fun working with you, and I think the level of excellence, the expertise, the selection here really rocketed it to the top of my list for places, like kind of my Vermont bucket list of places to work. This was number one, I would say.
It's a great place to be. From ownership, management, everyone here participates in what we do, whether it's riding bikes or skiing, hiking, running. I think, the products that get bought reflect that. It's all brands that are maybe not common to a lot of people or known to a lot of people, but they're all beyond good.
Yeah, it's premium stuff for sure. It's a lot of technical clothing and apparel. I spend way too much money here on clothing.
Yeah, as do I. But the stuff is spectacular. Like it's really curated, and the choice of things that get purchased here are obviously well thought out. It's not a giant store, and there isn't really room or money to make mistakes. So it really needs to be dialed in, and Don has done that over the last 30 years of this store. Check that.
Yeah.
Not sure how many years.
Yeah. Well, I think pretty sure this store has been in business since 1995. But yeah, I mean, Don just has a impeccable eye for picking cool stuff and creating a finely, like you said, curated selection. Mm-hmm. Every time I would come in here just as a customer, I would be wowed by all these brands that I haven't seen literally anywhere else.
Yeah.
There's a few staples that you might see in other places like Mammut, but I love Mammut. Probably most of my clothing is Mammut at this point. But like the Crazy line, the Montura stuff, 11.8, that's all stuff that you don't really see anywhere else. I know Don was like one of the first folks in the U.S. to bring in Ortobox.
Yep. Yeah. He was really early on Norrona. It's, and that's how, I think that's how a smaller shop like this can kind of outmaneuver some of the bigger places that are a little slower to identify cool new trends or cool new things. And it's certainly rewarding working on a place that has cool stuff,
Totally. Yeah. And, I think, we have all different types of people coming in here, but I would say that, a lot of the folks that come in here are those people that are really getting after it, going and doing those big hut trips out in BC or travel in, any corner of the world to go ski or bike for that matter. And people are always coming back in here with cool stories or funny stories about why their binding blew up for the 5th time. We got some pretty funny regulars in here.
Yeah.
And won't name any names, but
right. And that's part of
looking at you, Greg.
that's part of one of the cool things on the service side of things is yeah, our customer base really gets after it, which they do a number on their gear, and you really do see what works and what doesn't. And I think our customers are going to identify problem areas if there's a weak point or a failure point in a ski binding or a boot or a ski. I think our customer base will find it, and it's cool to. It's neat to see people that are using the gear as much as our customers do, and they keep me busy. So
yeah, and we learn a lot too. You learn a lot more from the repetitive folks who come in here with new things, new problems with their gear. You learn a lot more about the limitations of that gear, and that helps you make better recommendations to folks who are purchasing new gear too. So I think that's really helpful. And yeah, just to kind of circle back around, your background, you've been in the industry for quite a while at this point, so you've seen a lot.
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I started working in shops in the early '90s, and kind of made a life choice in the middle there where it was like, do I want to go do something where I'll earn more money, but not really like what I'm doing, and every weekend try to escape to the mountains, or do I want to go live the lifestyle I want and do stuff that I really love? And I've spent my life, I made a decision at one point that I never want to wake up in the morning and dread going to work. And I've had 30 plus years of enjoying going to work. Like, I like getting up to come to work. I like being here. I haven't been here for 30 years, but I've always wanted to. I made a choice that I don't want to work in a job I don't like.
Yep.
And I've avoided that.
You get to work where you play. We're really lucky to be able to drive 5 minutes on our way home and stop and go rip a quick lap on the mountain bikes.
Yep.
Be back in the car in less than an hour and get home and have plenty of time to make dinner and watch TV.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no,
it's cool.
It really is it's a great place, and
Yep.
And you hope the people that come here to visit get to see a decent amount of that. It's we've had some wet weekends for the last 2 months or so. And I always feel bad for people that I know are here for like 2 or 3 days, and it rains for 2 of them.
Yeah, that's another thing too. Like, we're up here and we get all of it, so we get to take advantage. We don't have to try to time the weather windows. We know when to wait it out and when to, when we can actually get out there and go hit it hard for a few days in a row. And
yeah,
that's another big benefit.
Yeah, and I think that's part of, like, when I said I stayed here because of mountain biking. Mountain biking is so much more forgiving to timing and stuff than skiing.
Yeah.
Alpine skiing is a huge love of my life, but if you ski a line 5 minutes before I do, I don't have as good an experience as I could have had.
Mm-hmm.
If you ride a bike trail 5 minutes before I do, there's absolutely no impact on me.
Mm-hmm.
So you can go for a ride at 5 in the evening and have an incredible time. You don't need to be, you're not trying to get first chair on a bike,
Mm-hmm.
So it's, and also I feel like summers up here, the weather is pretty amazing. When it gets good, it gets really, really good. And there's a lot more really nice days in summer than there are in winter.
Totally. Yep. And I feel like we're, we've had our kind of cold week and a half or two, cold, rainy weeks, and I think this week's gonna kind of be the turning point. We're late May now, and I think it's gonna start getting real good.
I agree. We often have a second spring
Yeah.
where it rains for more than we would like for.
It's been like 40 degrees and rainy for a week and a half.
I think we're through that. I don't think that'll be around anymore.
Yeah, it's supposed to be 70 today.
Yeah. But yeah, I think moving forward we'll have days can't see outside right now, but it's as nice as it can be.
Yep, totally. Yep.
Not a cloud in the sky, zero humidity. It's just perfect.
Yep. So what's on the horizon for the summer here at the shop or Stowe or Vermont in general? You got any leads?
That's a tough question. Personally, I am really excited to ride some of the new areas that I haven't gotten to yet in the state. There's, as I said before, there's new riding zones all over the place, and I've been staying a little close to home for the last 4 or 5 years, and I want to branch out a bit more, ride more places, more day trips that are there's so many places accessible within an hour and a half drive.
Yeah.
But I want to get a little further away from home base here, and
it's tough when you're 5, 10, 15 minutes from a trailhead versus driving 30 minutes,
Yeah, it's really hard to it's hard to leave here, between Waterbury and Morrisville Hyde Park. There's so much good riding. Mm-hmm. It's really hard to go anywhere else, but I think it's really important to go other places and see what's out there. And I think everything evolves, so trail builders, especially, the pro builders are, I think, as newer places get built, I want to see what's changing with the way they're building things. Mm-hmm. Bikes have evolved, riders have evolved, and trails have evolved, and as things change, the trails change. So I really want to get down to Randolph, Rochester area and see some of the newest trails in town, in Bolton, part of the Richmond Trail Network. The driving range is right around the corner from us, but I haven't gotten there yet, so that's on the to-do list. And that it's close enough that at this point in the year, it's close enough to do an after-work ride there.
Yep, for sure.
It stays light out till 8, and you can get a lot of activity in after work.
Definitely, yeah, yeah. Yeah, talking about the trail builders a little bit. You've been kind of tied in for a while. You've seen the development and the change in trail networks, like you were talking about Adams Camp, or yesterday you were talking about town loops, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which is now we all call Katy Hill, but when I moved here it was called the town loops. It was illegally built, illegally maintained trail in a on a bunch of private property that some of the landowners knew of and some didn't, and that got that's where the Stowe Trail Partnership started off. The Stowe Mountain Bike Club was founded in order to kind of legalize those trails, and it took a while. It took a while before the town and the land trust trusted mountain bikers enough to work with us, and I think it's been a big benefit. I think everyone sees the benefit of what that land got purchased by the land trust. It's about 380 acres, I think. I think Katy Hill Forest is a little over 300 acres, anyways. So that allowed for legal trail to be built and mapped, signed, so people could go out and navigate without feeling lost, which was how it was when it was the town loops. You either rode with someone that knew where they were going, or you wandered around lost in the woods until you figured it out, which didn't take long, and it was kind of a fun part of biking. Mm-hmm. For years, mountain biking, a lot of it was finding trail, mm-hmm. and I think people developed a bit of a nose for you could look and be like, I bet there's trails around here somewhere. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you got kind of adept at finding them or finding people that can show you them.
Yep.
And that was kind of a fun part of the sport, but it's not very inclusive. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't. It was definitely more like a surf mentality of, these are ours, But it was fear of losing those trails because mountain biking was a lot of it was done covertly, and like I said, building trails on other people's property.
Yeah, it wasn't guaranteed. It wasn't secured the way it is now.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I balk at a little bit when people say like they don't want to put effort into something that may not be permanent. But mountain bike trails they don't, maybe you don't always get a trail forever, but if you've got it for 10 or 15 years, like it's still worth putting effort in to build trails that are on maybe a piece of land that eventually might get developed. Yeah, you're going to lose the trail or you're going to have to reroute stuff, but it's worth having the trails for the time you do. Yeah. I think,
yeah. And it's ever changing, right? Like, it's a part of the terrain. The land changes over time. We may be able to modify it to be able to ride a bike down it, but it changes over time. Yesterday you were telling me if you leave it for a season or two, it goes away. It's
amazing how fast the forest will just reintegrate bike trail. It doesn't take much, one fall of leaves, a winter, some limbs come down, trees come down, and a trail is just erased within 2 years of people not riding it. It's gone. Like you might be able to refine the trail tread, but the trail's gone. Like it's invisible to people. If you want to stop. If you want to stop people riding those trails, it doesn't take long for the forest to just take over, and it just looks like any other bit of forest.
Yeah, and I think there's a misconception amongst a lot of people that building trails is destructive to the landscape or the forest, and trails are somewhat ephemeral if you leave them alone. You have to maintain them.
Yeah.
It's really civil engineering that goes into building them, right? Because you're dealing with a lot of directing of water pathways and things like that.
Yeah.
To be able to keep trails dry.
Prevent erosion, where people are going to be using their brakes and things like that, can impact how a trail rides, how much maintenance it's going to take to ride well. The idea that trails are, damaging to the environment, I don't think is fair. If there's an argument against the mountain bike trails, in my opinion, it's putting more people in the woods, which on the one hand is great. On the other hand, it's more pressure on wildlife.
That's true. More encounters, more, just more traffic in there.
But it does seem like, you see animal droppings on trails pretty often. Like it seems like they use our trails too. So I think a lot of deer, a lot of animals are using the trails to get around themselves. But that's my one thing with biking is I think there are times of the year where maybe we could stay out of the woods and go ride some gravel and let the animals have their time when also hunting is a thing, and hunting seasons, there are times where it's not much time to give up to let hunters have 2 weeks. And it's not the end of the world for us to ride either an area that doesn't allow hunting or gravel roads.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways that people recreate in the outdoors, whether it's on two wheels, on foot, on skis, on snowboards.
Yep.
XYZ.
We don't all like every activity, but there are people that have a right to be also out using the forests, and it's important to be respectful of that, because as like I said, I started riding quite a while ago, and I've seen trails get built, trails get lost, trails get there was a kind of historically it was like illegal trails got built, they get found. Someone forms a club to maintain the trails to allow that to stay open.
To lobby the landowners.
That eventually leads to multi-use trails. So like other people like, oh well, this would be good for hiking and this would be good for trail running. We should let other users use these trails, which is great. But then the mountain bikers are eventually like we're usually the black sheep in the hierarchy of trail users, and I've seen it many times. This doesn't happen much anymore, but there was a time where it was like build a trail gets found, start a group that to lobby and to maintain it, and then turn it into multi-use, and then bikes get kicked out.
Yep.
And it's hiking trails and whatnot. Like I said, I think we've evolved past that, but it's always a worry of mine, having seen it, that like we got to be a little bit careful as a sport of to understand that we're not guaranteed access. So like we got to behave.
Absolutely. We'll start wrapping this up, and talking about trails, I want to just tip our hats to the folks who spend time building these trails. So I know you've spent some time building trails. Who's some of the other folks that have really brought Vermont mountain biking into 2025?
Well, here in Stowe, a guy named Hardy Avery was the guy that built a lot of the early stuff between Stowe and Waterbury. Hardy Avery and his partner Dana Jordan owned a bike shop here in town, and they built and maintained a lot of the trails that were directly behind their shop, which was the town loops. Hardy also, he was the guy building trails. He started the trail company, and basically everything that Stowe Mountain Bike Club at the time, anytime there was a trail getting built, Hardy basically got the contract. He was good and built some great stuff. He has moved on. He's down in the southwest corner of Vermont now in Slate Valley, developing that network, which has really blown up over the last few years, and that's his doing once again. So Hardy, I think, really needs a huge tip of his cap, or to our cap to him, that like he really got this going here.
Yep.
And as a teenager,
Cool.
Then some of the pros, Tom Lepesker, Lepesker Trailworks, and Lepesker and Daughter Trailworks is just a phenomenal trail builder, incredibly knowledgeable, and really knows what he's doing. There's Night Eyed out of the Northeast Kingdom is a stonemason by trade and just builds unbelievable bike trail. Is a incredibly gifted rider, and really has an idea, has a real eye for building trail. Definitely made some of the more technical, harder trails. That's kind of he builds a lot of really like pro level trails that are
not for everybody trails.
Yeah, but when they're built right, there's a beeline for people to go around difficult things. Not everything is. I don't think he would have. I've never seen a trail that he built where there are jumps that couldn't be hit by any intermediate rider. Like where you don't need to go over. You don't have to leave. You don't have to leave the ground. Brooks Scatcherd, another local Vermont builder, has built a ton of great trail in the area. There's a
Central Vermont guy, right?
He actually, as far as I know, he lives in Morrisville.
Cool.
He was living in Morrisville. He may have moved. But he's done a lot of work in Central Vermont and Southern Vermont. He's done a lot of building for ski resorts that want to enter the mountain bike side of things. He built early in the day. He built a bunch of trail or improved a bunch of trail in Norwich. At the Norwich, is the outdoor center there? There's a
Oh, the Shaw Rec Center.
Yeah.
At Norwich University, not
yeah
Norwich,
yeah
Vermont.
yes.
Yep. Yeah, those are great trails. Yeah, the Shaw Center there at Norwich, they rent out bikes, at least to their students, but I think to the public as well. But yeah, there's some good trails there.
Yeah. So Brooks.
A lot of vertical. I think Payne Mountain has some of the most vert for a mountain bike area outside of like a ski resort.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know the answer to that. I don't.
Yeah,
Sure,
I think
yeah.
that's. I think I heard that at one point. But I think he did some work in Millstone and the North Branch as well.
Yep. And he's built. He's built here. He's built in. He built what was Suicide 6. It's now Saskatchewan. Not sure what the
Down in
new-
Woodstock.
down in Woodstock. He's built a lot of stuff. Which another place that's had, a ton of new trail built. Yeah, I know he built trail at Stratton. He's been all over the state, and
Cool.
The Scatcherd family has deep ties to mountain biking in Vermont. His brother's a coach at Simba, the Stowe Mountain Bike Academy.
Cool.
Developed a fat bike product that basically replaced the front tire with a suspended ski, and sounds a little weird, but it works pretty amazing.
Cool.
And they go way back.
Nice, man. Cool. Anything else you want to add?
Not really.
Yeah. If you need to get your bike worked on, take it to Mike. He knows what he's doing. He's going to fix my chain today.
Yes, I am.
Or at least show me how. Cool. If you have any questions, give us a call, 802-253-4531. Check us out on the interwebs, mountainopsvt.com, mountainopsvt and on YouTube, and mountainopsvt on Instagram. I think that's it. We're still tuning skis. Come bring your skis in to get your summer storage wax. I think that's it.
All right.
Cool.
Let's go to work.
Thanks, man.